All right, I think we are a minute or two past the top of the hour, so we'll get started. Welcome to Splunk Tech Talks. This is Platform Edition. My name is Michelle Morera. I'll be kicking us off. I'm a platform product marketer, and we're here to talk about Splunk 10. All right, and I'm going to also introduce you to the really awesome platform pros, the folks that we have on this call. When everybody starts to present their section of this presentation, they'll go on camera, say hello, introduce themselves, but just get excited. We've got some awesome people. All right, so I'm going to talk through our agenda. So just a big thank you for attending from the top and your interest in Splunk 10. This Tech Talk is a deep dive into Splunk 10. We'll start with the basics and a high-level overview of Splunk 10, really who this impacts and what to expect while upgrading. I'll walk through the new features and really all the fun enhancements that you'll get to use and play around with. Then we'll dive into upgrade readiness. Ted and Karan will go through a deep dive of what to expect on breaking changes associated with Splunk 10 and a demo of the Splunk Health Assistant add-on. And then we'll end with live Q&A, but of course, feel free to submit your questions throughout this presentation in the Q&A section in WebEx. All right, let's kick this off. We are super excited to introduce Splunk Enterprise 10.0 and Splunk Cloud Platform 10.0, also known as Splunk 10. This is a major flagship release and a continuation of the best platform in the market. We hear directly from you guys that, you need a partner for the long run. We continue to be that trusted partner and market leader. A lot of what our customers are looking for when it comes to a data platform is mitigated risk. You're continually thinking about how to decrease risk with the massive amounts of data running into your platform. This is really what we deliver on with Splunk 10. As we all know, the platform is the foundation and key of achieving data visibility. For Splunk 10, for customers like yourself who need, stronger cyber preparedness to reduce the potential attack surface, prevent unauthorized data access, and protect sensitive data, Splunk 10 is that hallmark of digital resilience. Setting a great standard with advanced encryption, FIPS compliance, Splunk 10 allows administrators to confidently shift their focus from reactive security and compliance management to proactive business oversight and priorities. Splunk Enterprise 10.0 and Splunk Cloud Platform 10.0 launched on July 28th, just a couple weeks ago. I want to be clear, Splunk 10 is different than just a normal upgrade to the platform. It is an investment release. There are breaking changes and steps that Splunk admins will have to action on, but it's absolutely worth it. This is an investment of resources and time for admins, but they get a great payoff. And I'm here to walk you through that today. So let's dive into what's different and special about Splunk 10. This is something to get excited about. Splunk 10 introduces version alignment for Splunk Enterprise and Splunk Cloud Platform. Starting with 10.0 and moving forward, every 6-month release, the versions will align. The only exception to when they won't align is that 3-month cloud interim release. So it goes Splunk Enterprise 10.0, and in 6 months, we'll jump to 10.2. And then for Splunk Cloud Platform, it'll go Splunk Cloud Platform 10.0. In 3 months, we'll get 10.1. And in another 3 months, we'll get 10.2, aligning with Splunk Cloud Enterprise 10.2 with that 6-month time range. You may be wondering why we moved from 9.4 to 10.0, bypassing 9.5 through 9.9. 10.0 indicates a major version upgrade and signifies to admins to take care while upgrading. Additionally, there's an industry standard we abide by. Jumping to a .0 version indicates major changes and impacts and can be seen as a whole new architecture with classes of major features and capabilities. So what are those features and capabilities, and what are those major changes and impacts? We'll start with the features and capabilities at a high level, and we'll dive into those in a bit. So Splunk 10 is a more secure and compliant environment. It delivers digital resilience with FIPS 140-3 compliance, advanced encryption, platform modernization, providing organizations with a secure, compliant-ready, and cyber-prepared platform. In addition, you get updates to search and reporting experiences with Splunk Observability Cloud integrations, more control over your data with Edge Processor, and less time managing and deploying agents with Agent Management, and some really exciting Dashboard Studios enhancements. You'll notice many of the new enhancements within Splunk 10 are specific to enterprise customers. We continue our commitment to, on-prem customers. Many of our customers, maybe like yourselves, are running complex hybrid environments, and many customers cannot fully make that jump to cloud. Therefore, we continue to support you throughout Splunk 10. So in order to modernize the platform, customers will need to action on certain breaking changes. Splunk admins may have significant work getting their environment ready for Splunk 10. They may have to proactively update dependencies, controls, and compliance requirements. We do not take this lightly, and we'll walk through a deep dive of these breaking changes and mitigation steps later in this talk with Ted and Karan. App developers will have to test their app for Splunk 10 compatibility and actually mark it as Splunk 10 compatible on Splunkbase. In conclusion, the message I want to drive home is that the extra legwork that admins may have to action on is worth it. Splunk 10 continues that swing on digital resilience, and customers get a much more secure and compliant-ready environment. Splunk admins can lift their heads up from continually keeping up with compliance requirements and focus on their strategic business daily activities. All right, who will this impact? Who really needs to pay attention here? So this is big for FIPS compliant organizations or organizations operating a FIPS compliant Splunk instance. We'll walk through the timeline on the next slide, but FISMA and FedRAMP customers have a little over half a year to upgrade to Splunk 10 and maintain FIPS compliance requirements. This affects app developers and Splunk admins differently because they'll have different tasks to action on. I touched on this in the last slide, but it bears repeating. Currently, app developers need to test their app compatibility with the Splunk 10 environment and mark their apps as Splunk 10 compatible. And then Splunk admins will need to action on breaking changes applicable to their environment prior to formally upgrading using the Splunk Health Assistant add-on. We'll have a demo of this tool and these validations coming up. All right, let's do it. Let's talk timeline. Organizations running Splunk Enterprise are currently able to upgrade on their own schedule, and Splunk has begun scheduling upgrades for Splunk Cloud Platform customers, and those customers will receive an email notification 14 days beforehand. This is no different than previous platform upgrades. For FedRAMP and FISMA customers, by March 8th of 2026, you must be upgraded to Splunk 10. This is the big day to keep in mind. You will then be operating a 140-2 environment with Splunk 10. And then by September 21st, 2026, you must upgrade your FIPS configuration from 140-2 to 140-3. But please note that process of moving from 140-2 to 140-3 is relatively easy and essentially just updating the configuration file. That big compliance hurdle you need to remember is getting to Splunk 10 in March. Okay, customer value. What can you get excited about in Splunk 10? The core of Splunk 10 value is a compliant, ready environment. New and comprehensive mandates create burdens for SecOps, IT ops, and engineering teams. Splunk admins spend time and resources continually updating their architecture and administrative overhead for Splunk admins. Splunk 10 reduces that compliance administrative overhead for Splunk admins, allowing them to focus on strategic business activities, priorities, and daily tasks. Splunk Enterprise 10.0 and Splunk Cloud Platform 10.0 run on the latest cryptographic models, OpenSSL 3.0, and protocols TLS 1.2 by default, enabling Splunk users to rely on more data protection, access control, and improved monitoring, all in a more secure environment for you guys to put your data into. Although this is something that cloud customers already had access to be able to do, we are now introducing that same feature to enterprise customers. So introducing the publication of dashboards. This was a top requested feature for dashboard studios in Splunk Ideas. Users can now share impactful, visually engaging dashboards with peers, analysts, and executives, delivering insightful data to drive informed decision-making, all without compromising security. Moving into some of the observability cloud integrations into the platform. Splunk Enterprise users can now get easy access to Splunk Observability Cloud data. With related content feature, IT ops professionals can improve root cause analysis by previewing Splunk Observability Cloud infra and app data next to their Splunk logs. There are three main benefits: a full view of your events, so you can visualize real-time metrics and traces related to your log side by side in Splunk Cloud's search interface, faster root cause analysis. You can get the context you need in Splunk Cloud so you can quickly identify the source of the problem, seamless access to Splunk IM and AMP. With just one click, get redirected to Splunk AMP or infrastructure monitoring so you can address the issue in a purpose-built solution. And we've got a quick demo for you here. Please note that this demo is for Splunk Cloud, but the workflow for enterprise is the same.
So I am an SRE for an online hipster shop selling hipster fashion and style. And I got an alert and I came to my favorite dashboard to see what was happening. So I can see I have my events by service. I can see that in my bottom left messages count, I had some failed payment processing. And looking at my success checkout rate, I noticed that only 2/3 of my customers can check out right now, which is very bad. And I also see a high error count. So starting to troubleshoot what's happening, I click on my error count where I'm taken in to my Splunk search, looking at my errors. And in the past, I'd see my service name and payment service or my trace ID, and I'd have to go into Splunk Observability Cloud to continue troubleshooting and find those. Now I can expand my event. Scrolling down into my expanded event, I can first see I have my host, and let's click preview. And I can see the CPU usage, memory utilization, disk util, which is pretty high. So we're going to continue to look at our other previews, as well as being able to click open into infrastructure. So this host is being brought over from Splunk Observability Cloud and shown in Splunk Search. I can also click on my service name, which we were looking at earlier. And I can see with my service map that's dynamically pulled over, I can see my checkout service. I have high latency on my payment service, which I'm looking at. And then finally, let's click into our trace. So I can see I have a lot of application usage in my trace performance. I have a high error count and high trace duration. So this is where I probably want to start troubleshooting. So let's click open into APM. And I can click open into APM. I can see that my trace has some errors. And now I know I need to start troubleshooting in my trace view. So I am an S.
All right, moving on to the next slide. With Splunk 10, Splunk Enterprise users can actually tap into Splunk's real-time streaming engine and visuals, which allow them to build or bring in metric-based charts and service maps directly into Dashboard Studios. Now, IT op teams can get more accurate insights into the behavior of their infrastructure and applications. All right, I'm moving this over to my coworker, Hal. Oh my gosh, I almost called you Cal. And Edge Processor. This is a really fun topic.
Close enough, Michelle. Hello, everyone. What I'd like to share with you is information about Edge Processor. Some of you may have heard of this product because it has actually been in the market since about March of 2023, but what we're doing with Splunk 10 is bringing the control plane to you to install wherever you like. So Splunk Enterprise now includes the support for a standalone control plane, and that'll allow you to take advantage of all the great benefits we have with Edge Processor, filtering, masking, routing, doing all sorts of cool and powerful things to your data, ability to basically have a bit of a traffic cop capability from one central place with a great user experience. Next slide, please. In addition, we are starting to publish new pipeline templates. So these are going to help you get better value out of the investment you have. We're including basically helpers to get started to build pipelines to process this data based on various use cases and third-party popular devices and vendors that you'll find in Splunk Base. Next slide, please. Agent management. So this is actually a big one. Everyone knows what deployment server is. This is deployment server. New name, same thing. And so we're not actually building anything that you have to migrate over to. You upgrade to Splunk 10, you have agent management. Why the new name? It's important because it does more stuff. We are now able to focus, kind of broaden the focus of the agents that you can manage. Not only does this feature of the platform allow you to manage your fleet of universal and heavy forwarders, but it will also extend to open telemetry. We also have some powerful new features with more on the way that'll help you, for example, integrate with your CI/CD pipeline and other elements that will basically help you scale better to the needs of your business. Ingest monitoring. So this is a big deal because
All right, well, Hal cut out for me, so he did stop on when he said this was a pretty big deal. It is a big deal, and I can talk you through it. With ingest monitoring, admins can track ingest metrics, slice and dice metrics, delete spikes quickly, spot data gaps, and investigate issues faster. This is pretty exciting stuff. All right, we're going to jump into breaking changes. So let's rip that Band-Aid off. This is the stuff that Splunk admins will have to action on. And let's start with, what's the definition of a breaking change? I want to make sure we're all talking the same language. So we categorize it as a product feature that changes the default behavior of the product and thus requires customer action to ensure compatibility. AKA something will break in their environment if a customer tries to upgrade without ensuring it is compatible with the next version upgrade. So let's go through it. Here is an overview of a high-level overview of the breaking changes associated with Splunk 10. We've got dependency updates, security, deprecation and removals, compliance changes, and legal updates. You can see there are a lot, and you're probably wondering why there's so many. There's two main reasons: really to continue meeting compliance requirements, and really to continue that swing on offering a digitally resilient and modernized platform. This is not uncommon for major releases. For example, from a compliance perspective, FIPS 140-3 enforces a minimum OS version. And moving from OpenSSL 1.0 to OpenSSL 3.0 then requires a handful of changes and downstream effects. So Python now has to run on version 3.9 instead of 3.7. MongoDB has to run on version 7.0 instead of 4.2. We published a list of all these breaking changes, detailing what type of customer would be applicable to these changes and associated mitigation steps. And of course, I'll send that in the chat. So we're really not sugarcoating the amount of work admins will have to take or might have to action on. Admins can, of course, read those articles and information that we've put out, or they can download the Splunk Health Assistant add-on and use those checks to see any gaps in their environment directly. The Splunk Health Assistant add-on is really what I say is like the key to upgrade readiness. Customers can address gaps and breaking changes without impacting the applications and platform performance. The end result is, you guys get visibility of what you need to update in your environment, and you can action on all of that prior to upgrading, ensuring a smoother upgrade process to Splunk 10. There are, I believe, 12 checks built specifically for the Splunk 10 upgrade, and these checks and validations can be delivered at any time without needing to restart your Splunk environment. Of course, for Splunk Cloud Platform customers, admins have much less work. The Cloud Monitoring Console has its own subset of validations relevant to Splunk Cloud Platform 10.0. I believe there's about 9 health checks for admins to review. And our Splunk Cloud upgrade team reviews those checks on their behalf and ensures they're all green and ready to go before upgrading to Splunk 10. So we're going to dive into a demo of the Splunk Health Assistant add-on with Karan, a senior project manager for upgrade readiness.
Thank you,
Hey,
Michelle.
Karan.
Hey, thanks. Let me share my screen. All right, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Karan Cooker. I'm a product manager for the Upgrade Readiness program. As you're aware, Splunk 10 is here, and it brings significant breaking changes. We have built a solution to help our customer prepare for this upgrade without disruption via the Splunk Health Assistant add-on, also known as SHA. What is SHA? It's an out-of-band delivery mechanism for adding upgrade readiness checks to the monitoring console. It does not require a restart to Splunk. Some of the key points to keep in mind that SHA requires a configure monitoring console. It cannot run standalone. Upgrade readiness checks are delivered through familiar monitoring console interface under the Health Checks tab. SHA can be directly downloaded via Splunk base or through monitoring console. And the upgrade readiness checks can be run on both standalone and distributed environments. Here's why this solution works. So customer like yourself can access the new upgrade checks immediately. Simply download the latest SHA version whenever it's published without needing to restart Splunk or waiting for Splunk releases. It provides immediate value while we develop a comprehensive upgrade experience for customers. And our air gap customers can simply download the SHA and once and run the checks without the internet connectivity. Let me show you how it works. So go to the settings tab and navigate to the monitoring console. Click on the health checks tab and you will notice the upgrade health check button is active and highlighted. This indicates there are new upgrade readiness checks that are available for you to download. Simply click on that button. It will redirect you to the Splunk base. You enter your credential and accept terms and conditions. Once you accept it, it will redirect back you to the health checks tab, and you'll see the new checks are available for you to run. So as you can see, all the security checks are newly checks added for Splunk 10.0. Instead of me running all of the checks, I can just use a tag feature and just use Splunk 10.0 tag, and it will filter out all the Splunk 10.0 related checks. So you see, I'll just add a Splunk 10.0 tag here, and it will filter out only the Splunk 10.0 specific checks. And then you can simply click start, and it will start to run the checks. As our checks completed, any issues, any warnings, it will start to appear at the top of this table. And each issue is clickable. So you can click on the issue. It will provide a detailed information about what the issue is, how to mitigate the problem, what action do you need to take. And once after detecting any alerts, as you see here, you can just simply rerun these checks. And when everything shows green, you can ready to proceed with your Splunk 10.0 upgrade. Again, this solution is already in production and available for you to download today and run these. We're constantly updating this app with new checks. So as we identify new checks, we will introduce a new version. You will see that update health checks button become active when the new checks are available, and you can simply download it and run it and prepare for Splunk 10.0. That's all from my side. I'm going to pass it over to Ted.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ted Hellman. I'm a Senior Principal Product Manager at Splunk. I've been here for about 9 years now, and I'm delighted today to take you through some of the breaking changes with Splunk 10 in a bit more detail. So on each of the slides I'm about to present, note that there are a couple of little indicators in the upper right portion of the slide. This is to let you know who is impacted by this. So if you're admins, I'm talking about people who are running Splunk deployments. If you're developers, I'm talking about anyone who has built a public or private app that is run on Splunk. So if you are an admin who has built some custom apps, please also pay attention to the developer section of these slides. There will also be tabs up here talking about different compliance levels for FIPS compatibility versions, as was mentioned earlier. So those will appear on the applicable slides as well. So let's get into it. So if you hear only one thing I say today, this is it. Please update your apps. So as was mentioned earlier, there are breaking changes that will be surfaced through the apps that you're using on your stacks or through the apps that you've built if you're a developer. It is crucially important to making sure that the rollout of Splunk 10 is smooth for everyone, that all apps are tested on Splunk 10 to make sure they are compatible with all the breaking changes that we're releasing and made available through Splunk Base if they're public apps, so that customers can install them and get their stack up to the point where they're not going to experience any issues with any of the apps as they upgrade to Splunk 10. So please update any Splunk built and third-party apps that are deployed to Splunk Base to a version that is marked as compatible with Splunk 10, especially premium apps and any of the dependencies in those apps. If there is not a version of an app you're using on Splunk Base that is compatible with Splunk 10, and you want to continue using that, please keep in mind that you may want to perform this testing yourself so that you are not surprised by any issues as you upgrade to Splunk 10. For apps that are marked as end of life or archived or anything like that on Splunk Base, please consider this as an opportunity to potentially migrate away from those solutions, either to another supported solution or just in general. If you want to continue using end-of-life apps, you will need to test those as though you are the developer to make sure that they are not going to experience issues as you upgrade. So this is your opportunity to really take a hard look at any end-of-life or archived apps to determine if there's a better solution going forward. Developers. So we've mentioned a lot about the monitoring console and cloud monitoring console. Note that you will receive feedback through those experiences as well, if there are any specific issues indicating in your apps. But you should also test your app on the latest Splunk Enterprise beta or Splunk Enterprise release of Splunk 10. Carefully retest your apps, review any breaking changes to determine your path forward. So that's the general advice here. Please test and update your apps, and this will make the rest of the experience much easier for you to navigate. So what are those specific issues? The first breaking change that we're talking about is OpenSSL. So very specifically, the Splunk platform ships the OpenSSL binary, and we have updated that from 1.0.2 all the way to 3.0. So there's a lot of changes in this, and by and large, the high-level functions of OpenSSL have remained kind of constant. What is specifically likely to cause issues in apps is direct usage of low-level APIs. I am not going to go into this actually because the OpenSSL Foundation has provided a fantastic migration guide. There's a link at the bottom here, but you can also find this through Google. The migration guide really covers the specific changes that have occurred with 3.0 and goes into a lot of detail about what you can do to bring your usage of OpenSSL back into compliance. One additional thing to keep in mind for FedRAMP or FSMA customers is that some OpenSSL APIs are also disabled when you run Splunk in FIPS mode. So please, if you have customers who are running in a compliant environment, note that you may additionally need to test your app not just on Splunk 10, but Splunk 10 when run in FIPS mode. So if you do encounter any issues with OpenSSL 3, this will definitely require you to release a new version of your app to Splunk base so that your customers can get it installed and get back to a working situation with their deployment for Splunk 10. Kind of related to this is Python. So as mentioned earlier, we are moving to Python 3.9 with Splunk 10. Unlike previous releases, there is not going to be an additional interpreter provided with Splunk 10. So the Python 2.7 and 3.7 runtimes are completely removed in Splunk 10. The only available Python interpreter is 3.9. So the impact here is not as severe in Splunk Cloud. So 100% of Splunk Cloud customers have already been migrated to Python 3.9. There is no usage of Python 2.7 or 3.7 in Splunk Cloud anywhere anymore, which is fantastic. However, Splunk enterprise customers may still be using Python 2.7 or Python 3.7 in apps that are currently installed. So the big thing to keep in mind here is if you are on Splunk Enterprise 9.3, you can set force Python 3 in the python.version attribute in the general stanza of server.conf in order to proactively move all usage of Python in that Splunk deployment up to 3.9. The purpose for this is you will be able to essentially test the feature flag, use the feature flag here to test if your stack is completely compatible with Python 3.9 before actually migrating to Splunk 10. So if you wait until you install Splunk 10, it would be very difficult for you to reverse this change and you'd essentially have to fix your apps in place to update their usage of Python to be something that is compatible with Python 3.9. If you use this feature flag to test it before you upgrade to Splunk 10, then you'll encounter any problems early. You can just revert the flag if there are any issues that are encountered. So it gives you kind of a reversible way of testing if your stack is completely compatible with Python 3.9 before you upgrade to Splunk 10. What I'm saying is I would highly recommend you do this. So the other thing, in addition to the language updates, please note that any binary modules like OpenSSL that you might be using as dependencies of your apps may also break, which is why it's really important that you test your apps out on the latest Splunk 10 release or Splunk Enterprise Beta. So any errors that your apps may be encountering would be logged to the _internal index under the python.log source. So you can get a readout of any issues that may be encountered in your app by using that approach. Note additionally that we do have a check in the upgrade readiness app for admins that will tell you, like, is your stack actually configured correctly to use Python 3.9 to give you a heads up on whether we think it is safe for you to migrate from the Python perspective. So this is not new information for developers. We've been messaging this for quite some time. Hopefully this is not the first time you've heard this. Along the same lines, Node.js is undergoing a significant update as well. There's a little bit more nuance here though. So Node.js is upgraded all the way from version 8 to version 20 as of Splunk 10. And Node.js as shipped with Splunk 10 will also be deprecated. So a couple of things to unpack here. There are a lot of breaking changes between version 8 and version 20, obviously. That's many years of updates that you'll have to uptake in your apps. It is very important that you carefully test your apps to make sure that they are compliant with version 20 of Node.js. But the deprecation notice is something you should also pay attention to. So what this means is that Splunk will not be shipping a Node.js runtime anymore as of one of the upcoming releases of Splunk platform. So if you want to continue using Node.js, this means you'll have to package it and ship it with your app, which is a little bit complicated. As I was talking about to admins with EOL and archived apps earlier, this might be your opportunity to make a call on whether you want to continue using Node.js, or if you want to potentially migrate your code to something like Python that is going to continue to be shipped with the Splunk platform. So again, the general advice here is consult Node.js's also good deprecation notes to see if there are any APIs you're using that may have been removed or updated between version 8 and version 20, and then test your app on the latest version of the Splunk Beta or Splunk Enterprise release. Script invocation errors here are going to be a little bit trickier for you to identify, so I have a little bit more detail on that. Note that for custom search commands, mod alerts, modular inputs, all of these natively support Node.js, i.e. if you have just specified the script handler without including the .js extension, Splunk will still find them and still execute them correctly using Node.js. So it'll be a little bit trickier for you to identify in advance if a specific app is using these using SPL alone. And also, Node.js extensions may actually use a shell script or another language as a shim before executing Node.js. So it is a little bit more difficult for you to identify specifically that an extension point is executing in Node.js as it is implemented today. So what you would want to do is, again, look for invocation errors in your app, saying a custom search command was unable to be invoked, or mod alert was unable to be found, or exit code 0 from one of these logged to Splunk. From the way I'm talking about this, again, as a developer, please consider if Node.js is the solution you want to stay with moving forward. And note that there is a little bit of additional difficulty you'll need to go through as part of the test and debug process as you check that your apps are compatible with Splunk 10. Sorry about that. So getting into some security updates. So as of Splunk 10, we are going to be moving to the X509v3 basic constraints for certificates. So any intermediate CA certificates need to include CA : true configuration. Sorry if you could hear the background noise. I think that should be done now. This includes any intermediate certificates that an app may package. Please note that those also need to have this constraint set. So as an admin, you'll need to go through and verify that the certificates are correct prior to performing this update, noting that self-signed root CAs are not included with this requirement. But you can also use the Cloud Monitoring Console and Monitoring Console to check for errors related to this change. The specific SPL that we're using for that is basically just looking for failures from a variety of different root causes and then presenting those with a message saying, hey, you need to update this certificate. So it's a lot more straightforward for you to consume that through the CMC and MC. On Splunk Enterprise, you can also do this from the command line using OpenSSL in order to see if you have any certificates that are already updated for this change. So you can use the command that's included on this slide if you want to go that route. For SSL and TLS, I'm going to be pretty direct about this. As a app developer or as an admin, anywhere you have an SSL protocol set on your server or in an app, you should only be using TLS 1.2 at this point. So if you have anything that is using SSL 3, that has been completely removed. If you have anything that is using TLS 1.0 or 1.1, both of those are like really disabled when you're running Splunk in FIPS 140-3 mode. They are deprecated for everyone not running in one of those compliant modes and will be removed at some point in the future. So please just use TLS 1.2 at this point. To be very specific about this, do not use wildcard to specify protocols either. As an app developer, the issue here is you need to consider that customers using your apps may be on a wide variety of Splunk platform versions. Using wildcard on an older Splunk platform where, for instance, SSL 3 is still enabled, would result in SSL 3, which is very old and very deprecated at this point, becoming a potentially used protocol when using your app. So it is not recommended to use wildcard, even though it may make it a little bit easier for you to update apps, just because of the version spread that your customers might be using. So for developers, any app configuration that specifies a protocol should be specifying TLS 1.2 only. You can test this out using Splunk Enterprise Beta or the latest version of Splunk 10 that's released, or using the CMC and MC. Same thing for admins. Note that the only additional thing here is please check that all components of your Splunk deployment, including forwarders, are also configured to only use TLS 1.2. Relatedly, Splunk is moving towards extended master secret. So Splunk 10, when run in FIPS 140-3 mode, will enforce usage of EMS specifically. Just to summarize the rest of what's on this slide, essentially there is a specific order that you should follow when you're updating your Splunk deployment in order to make sure that nodes continue to be able to communicate. So the long story short here is that any nodes running Splunk 9.4 or below will not be able to communicate with nodes running Splunk 10 when those nodes are run in FIPS 140-3 mode. So our upgrade guides really provide some specific guidance on how to update the different tiers of your Splunk deployment. The reason is to ensure that they're continuously able to communicate with each other throughout the upgrade process. So please pay attention to that order. So yes, you'll see that in the upgrade guides. Please definitely pay attention to that, and that will avoid any potential impact. Again, this applies almost entirely to FedRAMP and FSMA customers. Feature deprecation that will probably not be too impactful is that we have deprecated Hadoop data role, so as of 9.4, and it will be default disabled in Splunk 10, followed by being completely removed in an upcoming release. So if you're a Splunk Cloud customer, this doesn't impact you too much. It was never available in Splunk Cloud. If you're a Splunk Enterprise customer, however, please note that this feature will no longer be available. So you'll need to upgrade or migrate to another archiving solution. So if you're not sure if you're using Hadoop data role, this is surfaced as a VIX provider in Splunk, a virtual index provider. You can search for those using the SPL I've provided here. If you are using Hadoop data role, you will need to migrate to another automated archiving solution. Splunk's public documentation actually does cover how you would accomplish this in Splunk Enterprise today. But just note that this will not continue to work after you upgrade to Splunk 10 if you continue using it. Splunk is also moving to update which processor architectures are supported. This is a requirement of upgrades to OpenSSL 3 and the underlying KV store requirements. So starting with Splunk 10, advanced vector extensions are required. So very specifically, if you're using a virtualization environment, you need to make sure that AVX is enabled. And if you are running Splunk directly on hardware you control, you need to make sure that the processors used are Sandy Bridge and higher or Bulldozer and up. These processors are quite old, so it is unlikely that you are impacted. However, if you install Splunk 10, upgrade to Splunk 10, and receive an error indicating that KV Store was unable to start, as is listed at the bottom of this slide, that may be the underlying reason. So if you have installations directly on hardware that you control, please review the processors used before upgrading Splunk, especially if you suspect that you have older machines. If you're running Splunk in a containerized environment, please ensure that AVX is enabled before upgrading to Splunk 10. The next change is something I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on. It is a little bit nuanced, and it's very important that we get everyone migrated to the new Search API version. So the version 1 Search API endpoints have been deprecated for a long time at this point. They were formally deprecated in Splunk 9.0.1, and they will be disabled by default in Splunk 10. So there is a feature flag, v1 API block get search launch, that will be enabled by default in Splunk 10. And we are including two different checks in the CMC and MC to help you navigate this change. One of these is just checking to see if this feature flag has been turned on and encouraging you to turn it on before the migration. The purpose of this, like with the Python version, is to allow you to set your stack to this state before upgrading to Splunk 10, so that if you encounter any issues with apps that you have installed or other usage of the Splunk platform through this API, you can reverse that change through the feature flag, which is a very quick and simple operation, rather than having to figure out a way to fix your apps in place after you've upgraded to Splunk 10. So I would highly recommend looking at that check through the CMC and MC before you upgrade to Splunk 10. The other check is looking to see if you have a call to a deprecated endpoint. What this is saying is when a call is made to one of these older endpoint versions, we're simply logging internally to the underscore internal index that a call was made to one of these endpoints, and we try to grab the app context from which that call was made. So long story short, you can get a list of the apps that are using older API versions by looking at the internal index, which is essentially your hit list of what will need to be fixed or updated before you migrate to Splunk 10. All of that said, admins, the thing I really want to get across here is that there are very specific premium app versions that you'll need to install prior to upgrading to Splunk 10. The best case scenario here is that you're able to uptake those premium app versions before you upgrade to Splunk 10 to just avoid this issue wholesale. I will note, though, that the v1 API block get search launch feature flag also exists to allow you to continue extending compatibility of these premium apps into Splunk 10 if the upgrade would otherwise be very onerous for you. So if you want to use this feature flag to decouple your upgrade of a premium app from the upgrade of Splunk 10 a little bit, that will buy you a little bit more time to manage both of those upgrades. And for Splunk Cloud customers, Splunk support will be proactively working to figure out the upgrade path here and ensure that this is not going to be an issue for anyone in Splunk Cloud as you go through this upgrade process. For developers, again, You will want to make sure that you are following the same advice for admins, using the monitoring console to check if your apps are getting flagged for usage of deprecated endpoints and testing on a latest version of the Splunk platform. Additionally, I want to put a pitch out here for the Splunk SDKs. So if you are using the versions listed here of the Python, Java, or JavaScript SDKs, those SDKs actually do some detection of which platform version they're talking to ensure that they're using a V2 version of the search API where it's available, in order to make sure that it's targeting the correct API version, the most recent version that's available for the endpoint it's trying to call in all cases. So it's really neat functionality in these SDKs that will avoid a lot of hassle with your upgrades, and I would highly recommend that if you're using an older version of one of these SDKs in your apps, that you please upgrade to the latest in order to uptake this functionality. So I mentioned that AVX extensions were required for some of the underlying dependencies of KV Store. One of those other dependencies is MongoDB. So we are upgrading this to version 7 all the way from version 4.2 in order to maintain compatibility with OpenSSL 3 and FIPS 140-3. So starting with Splunk Enterprise 9.4, actually, the upgrade process will bring MongoDB up to version 7. So this should already be taken care of if you're on version 9.4. And otherwise, as part of the upgrade process to Splunk 10, you will be taken up to MongoDB 7. For Splunk Cloud customers, again, this is something that Splunk Support is handling behind the scenes to make sure that you don't have to deal with during your upgrade process. If you're not sure what KV Store version you're on, you can actually check this using the pipe rest command. This is exposed as a service version endpoint for KV service and KV Store. The only thing I would say you really need to be concerned about here is if you have any version of MongoDB other than 4.2. So if you end up with 4.0, you will need to follow Splunk's documentation on how to upgrade MongoDB back to 4.2 before you trigger this update process. Again, it's really important that when you're running Splunk 10, you end up running MongoDB 7 at the same time. So the error here at the bottom for admins should look similar. It's the same error as AVX extensions being disabled or unavailable in the process architecture. So you end up just saying that Mongo cannot start if you are on an older version here. So these are your two things to check if you end up receiving that error, is just which KV Store version you're on and whether AVX extensions are available for your Splunk deployment. And then kind of getting towards the end here, minimum OS versions are incrementing with Splunk 10. Note that there's a different set of supported OSs for Splunk 10.0 run in FIPS mode versus run not in FIPS mode. So you'll need to be careful with what versions you're actually testing on, depending on whether you're in a compliant environment or not. In Splunk Cloud, we'll handle the upgrade for you. So this will be coordinated through support, and there's not really an action here required for you. But for developers and for for Splunk Enterprise customers, please note that you need to be aware of the specific platform versions, OS versions that you're running on. So for app developers, please just review those, test your apps out as needed on the supported platform versions. And for Splunk Enterprise admins, you'll need to review this list to make sure that your hosts are updated to a acceptable minimum required OS version before you trigger the Splunk 10 update. So here's what it looks like for the search head and indexer and management tier. Note that there's no supported OS X build just for the search head and indexer tier. Here's what it looks like for the forwarder tier. Note that we do have a couple of supported operating systems for OS X outside of FIPS mode. So please just review this list. It is available on Splunk Lantern and as part of our upgrade documentation in order to ensure that you're not going to run into any issues with OS compatibility. Last issue I want to call out is EULA acceptance. So if you are running Splunk either through the Splunk Docker container or the Splunk operator for Kubernetes, there's an additional end user license agreement that you will need to accept as part of your upgrade process. This doesn't apply to Splunk Cloud or Splunk Enterprise customers. This is purely for Splunk being operated on Docker or Kubernetes. So there are some specific commands that you'll need to run based on which environment you're running it in. Splunk has a quick start guide for the Docker container that you can access on Docker Hub in order to ensure that the license agreement is accepted. In Splunk Operator for Kubernetes, this can be set as a configuration parameter when you actually start up your containers. So again, this just needs to be set in order for the containers to start. Splunk will refuse to start if you have not accepted the end user license agreement, which makes a lot of sense. So this is just something that you'll need to be aware of as you're going through actually doing the update process. And at this point, I'll hand it back to Michelle, although I expect there's some questions in the chat that I can switch over to now that I've gone through that.
All right. Thank you so much, Ted. And thanks to everybody adding questions in the chat. Just a reminder that we'll continue to answer all these questions and put the whole transcript of the Q&A on community, as well as send out the slides. And I believe those are on community as well. One shout out at the end of this call is that we'll have a Splunk 10 office hours later in October. And please, huge shout out to Conf 25 this year. We're going to have some really powerful Splunk 10 breakout sessions and theater sessions, all on these new features, functionality, and of course, upgrade readiness. Please stop by the Builder Bar and ask the expert. These are areas where you can talk to Ted, Karan, Sean, and all Splunk experts directly and ask your questions to them. So for now, we're going to continue to answer questions in the chat, but we really appreciate all your time. All right, Lissetti, who is hosting, do we continue to stay on, or can we continue to answer these questions as we all roll off?
We have 7 minutes still until the top of the hour, so we can stay on and address all the questions that we can at this time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
I can only type so fast. I know there's a few of us doing that. I'll address one from Mike Albert. Will data management come to on-prem customers to provide consistent user experiences for onboarding and administration? Yes, is the short answer. There are a few different components of this, and some of them did launch with Splunk 10. I'd mentioned edge processor control plane earlier. There are some other pieces of the puzzle that you should see kind of get more consistent over time. Ted or Sean, y'all have any you want to pick out?
Yes, just
he asked about a license file. Sorry, I did not mean to step over you, Michelle.
No problem.
Anthony asked, will my previous license file work with Splunk 10, or will it need to be issued a new license file? I believe that generally the answer is these are time-based, actually, so you do not need a new license file. Ted Vernon asks about, he's concerned about third-party apps. Can you speak to what third-party apps you're communicating with major vendors like Akamai and security apps? Anything to say there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started communicating with app developers, especially those who have posted apps on Splunkbase around February of this year, indicating what the upcoming breaking changes would be and trying to work with them to get supported versions. So if you check Splunkbase today, there are actually hundreds of apps that are already updated for compatibility with Splunk 10, including some of those from major partners. So we have not just once in February, but like aggressively since February, been working with third-party app developers to get their apps updated. and have ramped this up even in recent months. So we are really working to make it easy for you to just update to the latest Splunk 10 compatible version of these apps.
There were a couple of questions about availability of features in GCP, and I don't think we have anything specific to answer about that platform, but I would just say, speak up to your account manager, your account team, and engage with us so that we can help get the right the customer signals to the product organization. Changes into how indexing is performed there. A lot of good questions. Thank you for your engagement, everyone.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. If we haven't answered your question in real time or on the chat, we will get to it and post it on the community.
So Mike asked, will Splunk Cloud allow you to ship apps with packaging your own Node.js? Great question, Ted, right?
Yes, it will. You can continue to do this for the foreseeable future. Although again, if you're going through the process of packaging that runtime in your app, this is my personal request that you consider whether that's the easiest thing for you to do as you upgrade your app's compatibility.
I didn't ask if it gave you heartburns, Ted.
Yes, it will be allowed per app inspect and cloud vetting.
Ben had a question around FIPS, if Splunk will continue to be functional after the deadline. I think the answer is yes. That's really just about compliance for CNP, right? So there is no sort of artificial or predetermined dates that will cause Splunk to stop working. It's just the compliance will no longer be valid. Also saw a couple questions around SHA, the Splunk Health Assistant add-on. So that's specific to CNP for on-prem. That's how you get the updated checks. Cloud Monitoring Console is where you would find those same checks on the cloud product. So there's some distinction there. And I think there was one question around they did not have the health tab or did not have the health checks in 9.3. If that's the case, I don't know off cuff of what the resolution there, but support's probably your best bet because it should be there.
There were a couple of questions about if we intended to deprecate simple XML. And I believe that there are no plans to do that at this time, I think is the official answer. I would be shocked if that were to change, but I do not own that. Okay, Mike had asked a couple of questions about Log4j. I actually do want to call this one out. Product security is a big deal to us. We have look for the Splunk Protects portal. I dropped a link in the chat earlier, and basically we have a process for disclosure and the security advisories, how they're published. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with that. So definitely engage with us on that. There are cases where the third parties have rated something one way, and we're getting to those, and we prioritize those, take it very seriously. So I don't have anything specific about Log4j itself, but just in the general sense. Got a lot of questions. Y'all are pretty amazing. Mike, Albert asked, are you planning on supporting enterprise apps in Docker? Do you have anything specific for that, Ted?
Enterprise apps in Docker. I'm not sure I follow the question.
Yeah, I'll just say, generally speaking, we are increasing our investment in running Splunk Enterprise in Kubernetes, in containers. Nothing that is specific to Docker, the runtime or the management platform, but yes, you can run apps in a containerized instance of or deployment of Splunk.
Yeah, just a quick plug there. If you haven't checked it out recently, the Splunk operator for Kubernetes has had a pretty significant update in its app framework component, which is the app management for SOK. I would definitely check that out to get more information on how apps are actually runnable in Kubernetes these days.
Yeah, and actually he followed up further with an ask about it. Premium apps, enterprise security, ITSI. I believe that the answer will be yes, and I don't know any details.
Yeah, let's follow up on that one.
All right. If you have other questions, I think the best place to do would be to go to our community resources because we are always open there.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.